Chapter 2. Viola sits up in bed, swinging her legs over the edge. She rubs the dryness from her eyes and stretches. There's no point trying to sleep more, she murmurs. The memory of the boy who came to her the evening before haunted her all night. No matter now, she thinks. What's done is done. I need to leave as soon as possible anyway. It wouldn't do to drag someone like him into all of this. It's better this way. Still, the brightness of his chestnut eyes resurfaces in her memory. I used to burn with that passion for tales, once, a long, long time ago. She grimaces and turns her attention to the task at hand. With forceful motions, she pushes her legs into simple trousers. A dab brown shirt follows, smooth fabric slipping against her skin. While she buttons the shirt, she notices dryness along her papery skin. Nothing to be done about that. Not now, at any rate. Sighing, she folds her colourful storyteller garb into small squares and slips it into a large backpack. With a deft wave of one hand, the flamboyant hand shrinks to a third the size, and she places it in a box, which also makes its way into the backpack. She glances about. Got everything. Light begins to filter through cracks along the shutters. No time to waste, she mutters. A short while later, Viola steps out into the cool greyness of pre-dawn. She glances about her, eyes alert and questing. A furtive motion draws her attention to the building across from the inn where she stands. A figure shifts in the shadows of a doorway. Squinting to see better, she observes it is a small individual. She meets the gaze of the boy from the previous evening. Shaking her head in a decisive moment, she brooks no contradiction. Viola struggles to counter the voice clamoring within her, calling for her to hear him out. She shakes her head once again, more to silence the voice of her conscience than to reiterate her decision to the boy. She hefts the rucksack onto her back and steps out into the dusty road. Her steps are brisk. A powerful purpose drives her onwards, and soon the inn's two buildings slip into the horizon behind her, while the light illuminates the ochre countryside. In the distance, running at an angle and crossing her path, Viola makes out the hazy shimmer of mountains. They are very far distant. Between her and those far-flung crags stretch miles and miles of yellow-brown rock and sand, speckled with greyish shrubs. After some time walking only to the rhythm of her sturdy boots on the grainy path, Viola becomes aware of someone behind her. She glances over her shoulder and manages to make out a faint figure following. She confirms it is only one, but still, her heart rate speeds up. She looks back at short intervals. Then, as the figure maintains the distance between them and she establishes without a doubt that there is only one, she relaxes. Confounded boy, she mutters. A few crunching steps later, she relents and slows her pace. A rough chuckle escapes her. Well, at least he's determined, she thinks, as an approving smile twitches into existence. The boy closes the distance between them, and Viola takes the opportunity to scrutinize him. He is scrawny, with tangled hair reaching below his earlobes. She estimates his age around 13. As he draws closer, she considers his clothing. He wears sandals of dark leather. There is something lopsided about them. They are solid, but an odd cut. Handmade, she thinks. The grey sheep's wool of his clothes is roughly woven, and the cut on his trousers and shirt are simple. Vestment of a time gone by, she muses. I wonder what his story is. He draws up beside her and they fall into step together. He beams up at her and says, his voice bright and youthful, Thank you, master. You are kind to wait. Viola snorts, unable to hold back her irritability, and snaps, I am not your master. I do not take apprentices. I never have, and I never shall. You should go back to whatever hole you spawned from. Unperturbed, the boy replies, I cannot go back. Viola senses weight in the words. She doesn't want to know about his burdens. We all face hardships. However, there is something about the determination in his gaze that makes her ask, in spite of herself, and why is that? He shrugs. The motion is both heavy and dismissive. I don't belong there. Well, she adds, trying to infuse her words with kindness despite her firm abruptness, you certainly don't belong with me, either. In answer, his face creases into a knowing smile. But I do. I left that place to see the world and to find a storyteller who could teach me. The first storyteller I met is you, Viola Alerion, the greatest master storyteller in the Empire. Viola's heart constricts at the fervor in his voice. I don't believe this is a coincidence, he continues. The great Mother-Father answered my prayers and sent me to you. I'll do their bidding as I've always done. She rolls her eyes. Not only a harebrained youth, but a fanatic as well. What have I gotten myself into? Aloud, she reiterates, I have nothing against us travelling together. The roads are open to all, so that is up to you. Nevertheless, as I said before, I won't take on an apprentice. Believe me, you'll be glad of it in the long run. You really don't want to associate with me. She meets his wide-eyed gaze. She strains to put weight into her eyes, forcing him to accept her decision, but instead he shrugs and quips, You'll see, this is meant to be. Our meeting is blessed by the Holy Parent, and that is more powerful than either of us. I don't want to hear any more ridiculous nonsense about gods and predestiny. I don't believe in that bullshit mumbo-jumbo. Exasperated, she watches the boy bite down on his lower lip, trying, unsuccessfully, to hide a smile. The two continue trudging in silence, their gazes drawn in by the vastness of the landscape and the endlessness of the road they walk. Viola gauges the time from the sun's position in the sky. That should be far enough, she thinks. Without warning, she veers right and steps off the track. She observes the boy beside her, who acknowledges the strangeness of her behavior with the slightest lift of one eyebrow. He says nothing, though, and although Viola notices curiosity burning behind his eyes, he has the forbearance not to ask. The going is tougher in the sandy soil of the scrublands. Viola pushes on as the red sun climbs high into the pale blue canopy above, washing out the colour to a watery hint of azure. The pale sun, the second, follows its companion's trajectory. It is hot, and there is nowhere to take refuge. The bushes are knee-high, their grey-green leaves are tiny, dotting thin branches. The scrub is a study in grey and brown and ochre, a painting where the artist stabbed his brushwork in impressionistic dabs using subdued hues. Heat begins to sear off the ground, blasting Viola and her companion with waves of shimmering incandescence. She knows they need to find shelter soon. But still she pushes on despite her awareness. She glances behind them, but the landscape is equally flat and dotted with vegetation in all directions. They are alone. Returning her attention forward once more, Viola picks out a tree some way distant. It is spindly and hardly offers any shade, but she knows it is the only refuge they will find in this god-forsaken place. They reach their perfunctory haven when the white-hot disk reaches its zenith. Viola wipes the heat from her face, damp dustiness soaking into her cotton handkerchief. She takes a look at the boy. His breathing is fast, and he looks a little ill. His face is gaunt, cheeks hollow. A realization strikes her. You haven't eaten today, have you? The tiniest shake of his head confirms her suspicion. She rummages in her pack and pulls out a loaf of bread and some cheese. Removing a knife from her belt, she prepares a chunk of each and hands them to him. He hesitates, but she encourages him by gesturing the rough sandwich towards him. Forgetting her own hunger, Viola watches him devour what she offered. Her heart goes out to him. Small and frail child that he is, what story might lie here? That's right the way to trouble, she reprimands herself. Don't get involved, don't get attached. It is better for him in the long run. Licking the last creamy remnants from his fingers, the boy looks up, casting huge brown eyes on Viola. She feels the cold shell she spent years honing, softening from the inside out. Despite herself, she feels her mouth press into a sour line. You shouldn't have followed after me. He grins at her. There is mischief in his eyes. But, master, it was the best thing I could have done. I got real food for the first time in days. Viola can't help herself. Laughter bubbles up from a hidden recess she's almost forgotten existed. The next thing she knows, she is choking on a breadcrumb. The boy is beside her, rubbing her back. He pulls her water flask from a side pocket in her backpack and offers it to her. She drinks. Once she breathes easily again, the atmosphere between them turns serious. Viola breaks the weight of it by asking, "So how did you come to be here?" His eyes light up, stars glimmering in dark wells. "Does that mean you'll take me on as your apprentice?" Hope resonates within him. He quivers with excitement. Viola shakes her head. There is no malice. It is a simple fact, but still she feels guilt when she sees disappointment raining down over him. An urgent need to explain races through her, and she stumbles over her words to make things at least a little right. I just don't. I mean, she huffs her frustration, then starts again, irritable forcefulness driving the words out. I'm not good at it. I'm no teacher, and I don't want company. I travel alone. That is all there is to it. The boy nods, but Viola detects a hint of willfulness in the set of his jaw. Then, before she can confirm her decision, bringing home to him there is no way out of it, her mind is made up after all. His expression changes. A mischievous glint replaces his stubbornness as he says, My story will have to wait then, master. Viola shrugs. Then I'll take a nap. It's better to stay out of the direct sun at this time of day. Sometime later, Viola rouses herself. In those moments between sleeping and waking, she hears an unfamiliar scuffling sound. Her eyes fly open as she comes to her feet in one swift moment. She sees the boy coming towards her, carrying an armful of sticks from the local flora. Her fright turns into irritation. What are you doing? The boy drops his load at her feet and looks up. Intelligence burns in his brown eyes. A drone passed by a while ago. I thought it would be useful to have head coverings that help us blend into the environment when seen from above. Viola frowns. The way he says drone, hesitant, yet emphasizing the word as though it is new, unfamiliar to him, jars her already shaken nerves. How do you even know what a drone is? That's not a common thing in this backwater. He shrugs. In the way he holds himself, Viola detects a level of discomfort she cannot place. His eyes are on his dusty toes now. Then they flick up to hers again, and now they are piercing. It is by knowing things that I survive. Viola gapes. Is there anything she can say to that? What does that even mean? What does it say about this boy? She suddenly realized there is far more to this youth than she could ever have imagined. Her prejudices blinded her to how different he is. Who seeks out a wandering storyteller in this day and age anyway? She shakes her head, clearing the sandstorm of her thoughts. I'm going to need to let this settle, she thinks, and promises herself she will observe this boy more closely for the time they journey together. Then she takes stock of their surroundings. The second sun's disk has descended from its midday perch and doesn't blister with its blinding light anymore. The boy sits with his back against the tree trunk. His fingers weave out a pattern with stubby branches and leafy twigs. Viola sinks to the ground, mesmerized by his motions. Within a few minutes, he contrives a bush with a hollow at the bottom so it can serve as a hat. Viola pauses in her thoughts. Headdress, she specifies to herself. He holds out his creation to her. It is a ridiculous thing, but his words play in her mind. It is by knowing things that I survive. She holds back her derision. I might very well be able to learn things from this pragmatic boy. He could be really useful to have around. Then she stops herself. No, Vi. This is the first step. It's too dangerous. Too much is at stake. The boy prefers his rudimentary headdress to her again, and this time Viola takes it. Unable to conceal her distaste, she dons the fake bush. He returns to his work, creating a second one, and doesn't even look at her. Viola feels her cheeks crease into a smile. At least he's hard-working. Then she realizes something. You haven't told me your name. The lightness in his manner gusts away on her words. He shrinks, folds in on himself. His whisper is so low, Viola leans forward in her attempt to catch what he says. I left it behind when I departed on this journey. She feels her face contort. What does that mean? Silence draws out between them. Then he looks up, his gaze is piercing and his voice firm. When I left the clan, I renounced my right to the name they gave me. You may call me what you wish. Then he returns his attention to the twigs in his lap. The whole conversation takes Viola into the world of her past. She recalls her own moment, so many years before, when she chose to follow the yearning of her heart and set foot on the road. She hears the anger in a beloved voice, the determination in the haughty eyes that brooked no contradiction. If you choose this path, you are no longer my daughter. In the faint place of her nostalgia, Viola remembers another name she was once called, one so long forgotten. She failed to recall the pain which went with the loss, back when she started out. Returning to the moment, her heart goes out to this boy. I understand, she offers. Small consolation, she thinks. It is a terrible pain to be an outcast. The boy finishes his camouflage hat, and they set off into the heat of the afternoon. The two travelers walk in silence, each absorbed in the world of their own thoughts, mimicking the mute orbs tracing out an arc above them. Time passes until the boy grabs Viola's hand and whispers, "A drone is coming." He hunkers down on his haunches, sitting very still. Viola can't hear anything, but is loath to look up in fear of giving themselves away. She follows his lead and kneels so her head is even with the shrubbery around them. A moment passes in absolute silence, except for the overwhelming pounding of her own heart. Then she hears the soft whir of an engine above them. It takes several passes but doesn't stop, and Viola's ears pick up the boy's sigh of relief when the tool of the Empire buzzes out of earshot. They remain crouched where they are, paralyzed by their terror of discovery, before glancing up and confirming that the machine really is gone. We must hurry, Viola says. We need to get out of this area and leave as little sign as possible of our passing. He nods, and she notices his eyes narrow in response to a pointed thought. Then his face smooths again, and he walks beside her in silence. Realizing she is holding her breath, Viola allows the air to escape. She is relieved he hasn't asked her why a drone is searching for her, but she knows she may have to explain the situation, should the hunt continue. She shakes her head. No, I'll make sure to lose him in the next settlement. It is safer, he doesn't know anything. Otherwise, they'll be after him too. The brooding silence draws out between them. They walk through the dusty landscape, heat pouring from them from the afternoon glow. Ochre particles settle onto all exposed flesh, turning them pale brown. Viola strides forward, her motions swift, until she realizes she is walking alone. She looks back. The boy struggles to keep up, but he doesn't complain. She slows her pace again, her eyes flicking to the azure canopy above or glancing out over the still brown landscape behind them. The second sun sinks to the horizon, bathing everything it touches in a golden glow. The yellow-brown earth turns a vibrant gold in the evening light. The mountains remain purple, far distant. Viola shifts her position to keep her darkening shadow in line with her right shoulder. Night falls and they keep walking. She can tell the boy is fatigued. He insisted on coming with me. He'll just have to keep up or find his own way as he has before this, she thinks. In the dimness, Viola makes out a lighter expanse cutting through the vegetation in an unnatural line. At last, she mutters. Turning to the boy, she adds, Come, there is a farm near here. We can seek shelter there for the night. He nods and they walk along the compacted dirt road until the stars light up the cobalt heavens. A sliver of soft yellow light graces the eastern expanse. The moon bathes the landscape with its globular bushes in eerie light. The going is easier on the road and their pace quickens. A series of black shadows loom into view a short distance from the road. The buildings are dark. No light twinkles. Deserted inkiness and silence is all that meets them. Viola pauses at a half-tumble-down fence and stretches out her awareness. I can't sense any living thing, she says. There is still shelter, right? Viola nods and they approach the nearest edifice. The door is solid, but shifts when she puts her weight against it. It opens onto what was once a barn. Derelict stalls stand empty and gaping, black holes where once life found shelter. Casting about her, she takes in a solid wooden ladder up to a loft. She grunts her satisfaction and drops the heavy pack onto the ground at her feet. I'm going to check on the house, but I think we can seek our refuge here without any trouble. She heads back outside and crosses the dirt courtyard. Then she approaches the house. Her first impression is the door that hangs loose on one of its hinges. Peeking inside from her vantage point, Viola can only make out varying shades of grey and black. She is certain the place is abandoned, but knowing the door is damaged, she returns to the barn. Her instinct was right. At least they can close this door and keep out any unwanted night visitors. Returning to the barn, she pushes with all her might, heaving against disuse and rust, and finally closing the door. She turns to her pack and rummages inside, pulling out a cool object from within. Muttering under her breath, she watches as faint pink light glows into existence in her hand, revealing a large crystal. She notes the boy's curiosity and offers him the light. He reaches out and touches it, then lifts the crystal from her palm. How does it do that? It is a simple spell, binding light into rock to be released at will. Viola smiles. His vibrant curiosity is contagious. This one is lamplight trapped in quartz. Other, more powerful ones use sunlight. It is pretty. She nods and looks about. The ladder up to the loft looks sturdy. It will probably be best to sleep up there, she points into the darkened recess. The boy makes his way over and tests the ladder, his hand glowing. He climbs up and Viola follows, with her backpack to discover a small recess. Better than sleeping out in the cold, she thinks, before a violent sneeze assaults her. They settle down. Viola prepares a frugal meal, and the boy thanks her after performing what Viola considers a disappearing act with his food. One moment she's handing him the bread with cheese, and the next he's licking his fingers and picking for crumbs in his shirt. Chewing more slowly, Viola observes him. She is struck by an idea, and without thinking, she suggests, So you've decided you want to be my apprentice. You proved some of your worth today, but what of storytelling? Do you have any talent at all? He blinks, then grins. I can try. What would you like to hear? Viola smiles grim sweetness back at him. What do you dare serve me? He takes a moment to collect his thoughts, and Viola notices his introspection. Good, she thinks. He's taking this very seriously. At least there's that, although it is perhaps wrong to give him any hope. Then he shifts and adjusts himself on the hard planks flooring, their place of shelter, and begins. Long ago, or at least I've been told it was long ago, on a planet far away, in a distant galaxy, there lived a race of humans blessed by the Great Parent. Unlike other humans, magic use was not restricted to women. Those with magical abilities were powerful beyond imagining and could bend the elements to their will and even cross great distances in the blink of an eye. They were a people of wonder, and their world was something to behold. But they also lived among people who had no magical powers and who resented these abilities. The Terrans, as the people from this planet are called, began to lose their way and forgot the teachings of their parent deity, the mother-father who protected and cared for them. These people cared nothing for the godly gift of their world and exploited the resources of their planet until they risked the destruction of all life there. Other living creatures were pushed to the brink of extinction, and the natural world fell out of balance. Realizing they could not stem the tide caused by greed, the Terran magicians created enormous spaceships to save the knowledge they had acquired and to spread the teachings of the Great Parent in other worlds. They wanted to stop a catastrophe like the one they lived from being repeated in other places. The spaceships traveled for a long, long time, and at last came upon other planets inhabited by humans. They even came to this Haldrian Empire, and small communities settled in different places, teaching their message of love and grace from the Holy Creator, and the warning of losing one's way to greed and destruction. They used their magic to stabilize nature, stopping it from falling out of balance, and taught others the message from the Great Parent. And "Stop!" Viola exclaims. "That will do. I'll tell you my decision in the morning." She pulls her russet cloak from her pack and rolls over, not even waiting for the boy to close his mouth or nod. While she lies there, feigning sleep, Viola chides herself for her abruptness. She thinks on the strange topic the boy chose for his tale, but more than anything she ponders the flicker of a power more intriguing than anything she's ever come across. While he told his tale, a shimmer of rainbow light emanated from him in strange wisps. Viola wonders what that might mean. Her intuition tells her this is important, that she should accept his request and make him her apprentice. Her rational mind scatters out its many counter-arguments, but what she saw gives her no rest. There is nothing for it. She will have to give in and see where this crazy adventure takes her. With the decision made, Viola slips into a tranquil sleep, where she dreams of beautiful things, long buried.